Hon var USAs första kvinnliga utrikesminister och nu kommer hon ut med en bok där hon varnar för fascism i både Europa och USA. Vår USA-korrespondent har mött Madeleine Albrighet. Vi ska strax se Carina Bergfeldts intervju, men först en tillbakablick. Och vi ska till 30-talets Prag.
Redan ett par år efter att hon föddes i Prag 1937 flydde familjen utomlands sedan Nazityskland annekterat Tjeckoslovakien. Men det var först 6 decennier senare hon fick reda på att hon är av judisk börd och att det var huvudskälet till flykten. Familjen hamnade slutligen i USA 1948. Efter studier i statsvetenskap träffade Madeleine sin make, publicisten Joseph Albright, som hon fick 3 barn med innan hon skildes. På 70-talet arbetade hon med säkerhetsfrågor i Carter-administration. Madeleine Albrights politiska stjärna steg på allvar när Bill Clinton blev president 1993. Först utnämndes hon till FN-ambassadör och sen till utrikesminister 97, USAs första kvinnliga. Albright drev på hårt för NATOs bombningar av serbiska mål 1999, vars syfte var att stoppa övergreppen mot Kosovos etniska albaner. Bombkampanjen kallas ibland för Madeleines krig. Efter 11 veckors angrepp vek sig Belgrad. Den serbiska regimen föll och Kosovo utropade sig så småningom som självständigt. År 2000 blev Madeleine Albright den högst uppsatta amerikanen att besöka Nordkorea i de misslyckade försöken att stoppa landets kärnvapenprogram. 2001 lämnade Albright politiken. Idag är hon 81 och hade kunnat slå sig till ro. Men den amerikanska diplomatins Grand Old Lady driver idag en framgångsrik konsultbyrå och har skrivit flera böcker.
Hello, how are you? Very nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Right.
Secretary Albright, thanks so much for having us.
Delighted. Thank you.
You've written a book called Fascism, A Warning, and you start and end it with Donald Trump. Why?
Because I really do think it's important for people to understand what has created authoritarian/fascist governments all over, in a variety of places, both historically and currently. And some people think my book is alarming. It is supposed to be alarming. I deliberately wrote a book that had history in it to try to really get at the base of fascism through Mussolini and then Hitler and Franco, and then to bring it to what is going on currently in Hungary and Poland and Turkey. And so I do see signs of various aspects of warning that are in the that I think need to be heard in the United States.
Do you believe that Donald Trump is a fascist?
No, I don't think he's a fascist. I think, however, he is the least democratic president in modern American history, and that some of the aspects that I point out lead to fascism are some of the signs that are going on here. For instance, identifying with one group at the expense of another, not thinking about the importance of minority rights, of using, of really not respecting the role of the press in terms of the press really bringing us facts, not understanding how the institutional structure of the country works in many ways, and then some of the propaganda kind of things and rallies, some of those rallies that we saw not just during the campaign, but even as president. So those are the kinds of things that are warning signs. The best quote in the book actually is from Mussolini. Mussolini said, "If you pluck a chicken one feather at a time, nobody notices." And so I'm talking about the feathers that are being plucked. But I don't think he's a fascist. By the way, what I find interesting is Mussolini in Italian said, "Drain the swamp." So there's this kind of a sense that the government that is in office is part of the problem, and that you, the new leader, can change the whole dynamic and make, with some simple answers, X country great again.
But is it fair to compare Donald Trump to some of the worst mass murderers in history?
I am not comparing him to the mass murderers. I would never compare anybody to Hitler.
No, not Hitler per se. I mean, Mussolini as well. He had his fair number of killings.
But I am only saying that there are certain signs that one has to warn against, the feathers. But I am deliberately, and I'm very glad you asked whether I think that Trump is a fascist. He is not a fascist, but he is increasingly authoritarian, and he does not respect the rights of others. He does not respect the role of the press, and he, frankly, doesn't respect facts.
Is it the man or the tendency that is dangerous, or whatever word you want to use in the United States? Because 60 million people did vote for Donald Trump.
We have a saying in the United States now, see something, say something. I have added to that, do something. And on my to-do list, one of the points is to talk to people with whom you disagree, and not to kind of just put up with them, but to talk and try to understand what made the people vote the way they did, or why they think what they do.
You are yourself a refugee to this country, and right now the current president is making it as hard as possible for people to seek asylum here. What is your thought on that?
I think it's appalling. This country was created by people coming here, and the diversity of it. And I just know, I came when I was 11 years old in 1948. This was a country that welcomed people. I think it is un-American.
If you look at Europe right now, with all these nationalistic parties with anti-immigration that is popping up, especially now ahead of the European Parliament election that is coming here in 2019, what is your thought about what is going on in Europe right now?
Well, I'm very troubled by what is going on in Europe. So I happen to believe in political parties. And also the possibility of political parties trying to figure out what are functioning coalitions. Not everybody has to agree on exactly the same thing, but the direction of things. And compromise is not a four-letter word. You know, you need to really be willing to see some other points of view. So I would hope that the elections, the variety that are coming up, and you spoke about the Parliament, European Parliament, will be ones that will look for common ground instead of finding how to make the divisions worse. That's the part that really bothers me.
I do want to talk about Brexit quickly, because the people have voted there. Does this strengthen or weaken Europe?
I happen to think it weakens Europe. For Americans, I have to say, to a great extent, having Great Britain in the EU was kind of a bridge. They are our very closest friends in so many ways, and so I think it'll make it harder. I do think that one of the aspects that I can understand is that the bureaucrats in Brussels may seem a bit faceless, and that people do want to have an identity, and I believe in that. I think we all want to know who we are in terms of linguistic, religious, ethnic, but the problem comes about is if my identity hates your identity. So patriotism is one thing, and nationalism is very dangerous. And I'm not sure, and again, I'm very careful not to criticize voters, but I'm not sure they fully, in the United Kingdom, understood what they were voting for, and what the downside of all of it's going to be.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Säger alltså Madeleine Albrighet, demokrat och tidigare utrikesminister i USA.